I don't want to be combative anymore. I would rather build a bridge than a wall. We have a job to do. Mm-hmm. My role is to drop an imaginary pebble in that imaginary pond to create a ripple. See, I'm only 58 on my birth certificate, but don't be confused that I'm 58 years old. This is the 58-year-old vehicle that carries my 60,000-year-old spirit.
There is no hierarchy when it comes to Indigenous artists, Indigenous performers and Indigenous musicians, but there are central elements, and one of those central elements is Uncle Kutcha Edwards, a Mutti Mutti Man who has been portraying his life through music, song, spirituality and activism. And he's here with us now to speak with us for the Australian Music Vault. Unc, welcome.
How are you, Daniel?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's interesting to know and understand that you're making a difference, you know. But in you welcoming me to the Australian Music Vault and me accepting that welcome, there's other things that we need to do. Yourself being Yorta, my mum, and we'll talk about certain things. There are certain things that need to be put into perspective. The reason being is the introduction and my acceptance is in English. We have our own language, and I will sing to you, not only you, but to them old people in Mutti Mutti of my father's descendancy. The lyrics I will sing: I never sat with my grandfather. I never spoke to my grandmother. I never sang or danced in a corroboree. Marayidi is the word, I never. But I will sing it in one of my languages. I probably have 5,000 languages that I descend from. You too. The further you go back in your lineage, your family tree, you are of all those languages. And something happens when I sing in my language. My songline and I connect. But Maraire Nyangadin Nabunanalai Maraire Nyangadin Kuking alalai Maraire Waripa Oh, and you let it sit. But I am, I pronounce my descendancy of three clans, the Mutti Mutti, Yorta, and Nari, which is further up from Balranald, my birthplace. And Mutti Mutti, we are the southern caretakers of three clans of Mungo. The Nyampa towards Mildura, and then the Barkindji are the northern caretakers of Mungo. And Lake Mungo is where they found old grandfather. Or they said they found old grandfather.
He was lying there waiting for him.
He presented himself to the world. And it depends how you look at things, Daniel, you know.
Well, let's have a good look at you then.
Beautiful way of
You described
segue.
you described your lineage that goes back thousands of generations.
Yeah.
But how would you describe modern day Kutcha Edwards to people who don't know you?
Such an interesting question. There's. See, I've been fortunate. I've travelled this country, with some amazing people, and been to places where I would never have gone if not for music itself, not the songline. You go to Central Desert, and them old men, them old knowledge holders are called Jilby. And then you go to different places and they have different names for them old people. See, I'm only 58 on my birth certificate. But don't be confused that I'm 58 years old. This is the 58-year-old vehicle that carries my 60,000-year-old spirit.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you. Let's start at the very end. Tell us about your first memory. Can you remember where you were or what the circumstances were? Because that first memory, I get the idea that first memory of yours has started a journey through music that permeates through all your song and through your songlines. So if you could let us in on that, that would be pretty special.
Like my brother, actually my nephew, Archie, I'll mention his name.
Yep.
When I close my eyes and I go back, not in my intellect, which is supposedly holding the memories, but as Aboriginal people, we know the spirit holds the memory. So when I go back into my spirit, the very first moment that I can, and it plays like a video. It plays like a video. I'm in a cot, and psychiatrists and psychologists reckon it is an impossibility for any individual to go beyond memories from when an individual is 3. To suggest that they can go back to their, infancy is an impossibility. They don't know the strength and the spirit of an Aboriginal person. Like I'm saying, the brain doesn't hold memories. Why does a child of any nationality, why does a child sometimes maybe 8 months old, 10 months old, 11, 12 months, 1 year, why do they start speaking language? Italian, Greek, Chinese, Japanese. It's because the child is listening in utero.
Yeah.
So they know language even before they're born. Same as a blackfella, same as an Aboriginal person. That memory is of me in a cot in a place called Allambie Infant Reception Centre.
That's a romantic title.
I was removed from my mum and dad. Nugget, my dad, Arthur Edwards Sr., Mary Murray, married my father, I don't know when. But I remember that moment in 1967 when I was in Allambie Infant Reception Centre. I'm standing in a cot in a wet nappy, a cloth nappy. It's soaking wet. I'm crying my eyes out. They've not only separated me from my mum and dad, my country, Balranald, my language, my culture. they separated me from my siblings. There were 6 of us taken in 1967, and I was placed in that place. And I'm in this cot and I'm crying. I'm absolutely crying. And there's a grey, when you pull the cord on this grey blind, you know how you pull it and it from behind the curtain on the wall, you could see a splinter of light, one splinter of light. And if that's my first memory of me, how sad is that?
Incredibly.
Not have been nurtured by these 2 amazing people,
but
not my nanas.
But the remarkable thing about it is that first memory, you've used that to spur your creativity. You're, you've let it inform your spirituality. You've let it spur your activism. So that's why I thought it was really important that we get that first memory down, because I know the story and I know how tragic it is. You were taken off country. You and your 5 siblings were removed from your mother. Therefore, you're a member of the stolen generation. One thing I've always wanted to ask someone who's a member of the stolen generation was, what was it like being a member of that generation before the whole concept and idea of a stolen generation was coined? Because there's so many of you, and you would have bumped into each other throughout life before the whole idea of a stolen generation came about.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like, that sort of in-between time?
Existence is a daily thing. You don't. The lived experience while we were there that's all it was. And then at age 13, I got the opportunity to go and live with Mum in Traralgon in Gippsland. And I remember fortnightly knocks on the door. So the existence is lived. It's not articulated in politics.
Yes.
And I remember the policies were no visitors. You weren't allowed to have visitors, of which we had plenty, just not when the welfare.
Yeah.
Off weeks. And my brother Dave, I don't know whether you've met Uncle Dave. No. He was an amazing person in the fact that he wasn't there when they came to Balranald. He was in Balranald or Swan Hill Hospital, had cataracts. So he was in hospital when they came and grabbed us. And he was on a journey all those years. Where's my brothers and sisters? And what he did in the house in Traralgon, the rafters in the attic, he'd lay ply or wood in the rafters. And when any time aunties or cousins, and they'd place all their clothes and mattresses and everything up in the attic. And all the cousins and aunties would go into town when we knew the welfare would knock. And they'd go through the cupboards and they'd go through the fridge, making sure there was tucker in the fridge. And I can't remember what the question was, but
it's all right.
There's a reason why I go off on tangents, is because that's where my spirit's going.
Totally.
And it's hard to come back.
Even before you went to Traralgon to live with your mother, you arrived at the Yorta Methodist Children Home, where by twist of fate or by design, you were reunited with your siblings.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, Daniel. 4 weeks in Alambi,
Yep.
and that memory.
Yep.
And because I must have played up so much. Being separated from mum and dad, being separated from my siblings, the irony is Alambi, Elgar Road, on this side of Elgar Road, so the eastern side of Elgar Road, and then on the western side was Arana.
Right.
So they shanghaied me straight across, and I grow up with the 5 other siblings, Mick, Reg, Alice, Wally, Maria.
And they played a significant role, even though being children themselves, they played a significant role in raising you and making sure you're okay.
Nurturing me, and I need people to understand my actual journey. I was born on my birth certificate, on my driver's licence, on my passport, is the name Glenn Gordon James Edwards. And we'll go through the journey, but all those names are of my relatives, and I respect that. I understand that. But they are non-Aboriginal names.
Yep.
And I had this conversation with Mum when I was 13. Mum, why did you name me those names? And Glenn, you're Auntie Laura, your dad's sister. One of your eldest cousins is Glenn Ross from Deniliquin. What about Gordon? Oh, well, your dad's brother's name's Gordon. What about James? Well, my mum had two fathers. Her biological father, who was born in the 1800s, William Murray, and then she got reared up by James Smith. His nickname was Yorkie. That's why you got James. And I said, Mum, I love all my relatives, but with no disrespect, they're European names. And then, it's interesting when I go back.
There must have been quite a conversation from a 13-year-old to
my mum.
Yeah. What was her reaction?
I think she understood it, but politics had played her one of the worst hands that a mother could receive. And I said, Mum, politics has chucked us from pillar to post. But my spirit is telling me that my name is Kutcha. And I didn't understand much at all as a 13-year-old. And I've gone on to travel this country, and Kutcha in Pitjantjatjara, Frank Yammer. Frank Yammer sings a song called Kutcha Kutchu. And I sat down with old brother one day, and I asked him, Frank, what does Kutcha mean? Because you sing it. He said, 1. And the irony is that when I was 13, my first enter into a secondary school was Traralgon Tech. The first lesson was a humanities class. And the teacher, Noel McMahon, his name was, he said, okay, students, what I need you to do is write a poem that explains you. And I've gone, holy dolly. I was a newbie, you know, very sort of introverted. And the poem I wrote is called My Favourite Drop. I'm 58 this year, so I've held on to this. The poem goes, trickling down the waterfall, freely one by one, forming into clouds of spray glistening in the sun. Crashing to disaster, my water drop is done. Left the short life of loneliness and gathered back as one.
How old were you?
13.
So you're asking questions saying that you've got a name within you that you identify with. You go to school. You write a poem called One.
I'm getting chills as we're talking, Daniel, which to me is, people might think that I'm off with the fairies.
No, not at all.
My interpretation of dreaming, you don't have to be asleep.
No.
As Aboriginal people. And I would be in class, let's say graphics at Traralgon Tech. I hated graphics. And I would sit in the class and then my spirit, like shape-shifting for traditional people of the USA or Canada, they shape-shift and they can become the coyote or the eagle and my spirit would be gone. I'd be physically sitting on the stool in the graphics room, but my spirit would go, and that was my dreaming. And the teacher would, "Hey, Mr. Edwards, you're daydreaming again," and I'd sort of, "Oh God, here we go." He doesn't know. He doesn't understand.
So music
gave
you a channel for that spirit. So
Not then.
This is what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
When did music start entering your life?
Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you heard music and what did you make of it?
Yeah. And people might think that I'm really stretching the bow. I remember being in Arana, in Cooinda, the cottage, and it would have been probably once every fortnight. There'd be strangers coming to the cottage, Cooinda. "Oh, Glenn, you're going off on a little junket today. You're going with the Williamses today." And you'd hop in a car and they'd take you on joy rides up maybe the Dandenongs or down to St Kilda Beach or to look at Luna Park, the big mouth, And I'd hear on the wireless, and this is, I'd hear rock and roll and riding out along the bay, all bound for Morningtown, many miles away. Judith Durham.
And you came to forge a special relationship with Judith.
That's what I mean.
We might touch later on. I mean, I hope people watching this can understand already, even though we're in the early part of this conversation, that it's a remarkable life that you are leading. So that was the first time you came across music. When was the first time you thought, "Hang on, I can
School.
Make a go of this. I can
School.
participate in it." What was the moment? Well, what was the song? I mean, were you a shy child? Or?
Yes, I was very. When you're institutionalised, you only speak when you're spoken to or allowed to. So you build a cocoon around yourself, and your room in this cottage is your room. Your possessions are your possession. But again, I was protected by my older siblings, and they would make sure that, hey, don't touch his. But at school, I remember being in plays as well, theatre, what are they called, pantomimes and all those sort of stuff. I was in a play, Bambi. I think I would have been in grade 1 or 2, and I was Thumper the Rabbit, and But then I'd go on excursions from school. I was in a drum band where you put the drum on your hip and you'd march all the classes back in after assembly on the quadrangle. So I had this rhythm, so the rhythm was there. But when I conceptualise it, the rhythm, the river, the Murray on my mum's side, the Murrumbidgee on my dad's side, and the river of life itself, all metaphors for rhythm. And so I had it in me all those years. And then when I came to Melbourne as an 18, 19-year-old, in 1989, and I saw Robert Cray.
Oh, great.
Strong Persuader tour, and I saw him and my jaw dropped. I've gone, oh my God, this guy is not only has a strong resonance of lyric and song, but he looked cool.
Yeah.
And he 6'4" or 5", and a Fender looked tiny. And he was, and I went home and I wrote my very first song, Roll With The Rhythm, which went on the Blackfire first album, A Time to Dream. And in those days I was an angry young man singing in a rock band, and we were singing about land rights and land rights now and give us back our land, and very abrupt lyrics and loud noise. And come to pass that you figure out over the journey that elders really don't like that shebang and the
sort
noise.
Of more along of Charlie Pride.
Yeah, Charlie Pride and Conway Twitty and Waylon Jennings, and my mum had every recording of Slim Dusty.
Well, there's something about that music, isn't it? About sitting on the front porch at dusk during summer and listening to some of those tunes that's just so evocative.
Yeah. Well, Slim Dusty wrote about the landscape, Australia itself.
Yeah.
And it resonated for a lot of our elders, you know. And the irony is that when my younger brother was born in Narandra Hospital, Joy McKean, who's Slim's wife,
recently passed away.
Yeah. And she came in and into the maternity ward at Narandra Hospital, and my mum's laying up on the bed with my brother sitting right here in a crib, and Joy leans over and, what a beautiful child. I wouldn't mind taking this little one home with me. And my mum looked at her and said, Joy, you've taken, not you as an you've taken 6 of my children already, you're not getting this one. And that's a yarn that my mum would have a hell of a lot, but she loves Slim Dusty.
So you saw Robert Cray, who does a fantastic version of Chuck Berry's song Brown-Eyed Handsome Man, if you want to check it out, right?
Okay.
Which is fitting.
Yeah.
You caught the bug.
I caught the bug.
You started performing in bands. When did you realise music was going to become a way of life for you?
Blackfire, no, even before Blackfire, I was in a band called Watbalimba.
Yeah.
Watbalimba, Wayne Thorpe, Robbie Thorpe. There was 11 blackfellas, Aboriginal men. With 11 Aboriginal men come 11 egos. Yeah. And it didn't last very long. I loved the connection, but...
Lots of egos, but also acceptance, I would imagine.
Lots of stories.
Yep.
Lots of lived experiences.
And around the same time as well, you were admitted to Koori College.
Yeah.
Where you met people
You've
like...
done your research.
Uncle Bruce McGuinness,
Yeah.
Dennis Walker, Auntie Elma Thorpe.
Yeah.
These are some of the... Gary Foley, of course. These are some of the absolute legends of the modern Aboriginal activist movement.
Yeah.
So you're mixing with those group of brothers, and then you're at the feet of these absolute staunch legends. What sort of impact did someone like Bruce McGuinness have on you?
Bruce McGuinness was our Martin Luther King in that context.
Yep.
He knew the structure of government, not just one persuasion, state, federal, Commonwealth, universal. He understood it, and he understood the language. And then you had Arnie Elmer Thorpe, who was just absolute grassroots.
Very practical in the way she led her community.
Yes.
If there was something to be done, she would practically do it, including establishing things like the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service.
Yeah. And so you had these two people, and then you do a crash course over 8 months to 10 months to a year, and then you start to work within the community of Fitzroy. And I suppose I was the younger brother of Arthur, Mick, Reg, Dave, Alice, Wally, that they already had a footprint, had created a footprint in Fitzroy. I got work at Fitzroy Stars Gym under Jock Austin, 18-year-old, and I'm being taken under the wing of one of the greatest people in my life. I love my mum and dad, Daniel, but Jock was the father that I didn't have.
And the Austins are still there today doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, Jock was my mentor. I miss him. I will forever miss him. Yeah.
So geographically now we are in Gertrude Street when it comes to your story. So when did you first meet Uncle Archie Roach and Auntie Rebecca Hunter?
Would have been the late 80s when I started this journey of music. 89, Robert Cray, sitting in the park. 1990, Jock passes away in front of me in the gym. Because of my training as a qualified health worker, giving him CPR, trying to keep him alive in the gym that he and many others created, his world. And we lose him on the 3rd of May 1990, and my world crashes down. And I couldn't work there no longer. Jock would always, I wrote a song on the Black and Blue album called Get Back Up Again. Jock would always, this statement, doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it matters that you get back up. What a statement, or the memory of. And so I wrote about it. And then 1990, we lose him. I can't work there any longer. I'm a bumbling mess. I try to go into work to maintain his dream, our dream, but my spirit had already walked out. I ended up in the park in Fitzroy in 1990. And then 1993 is when Archie, that song, Took the Children Away. And that song resonated. not just when you write what you write. And if you have the foresight to step outside self, what an amazing song.
Incredible.
I've travelled the world with my brother, you know, and Ruby, my sister. And you sit in rehearsals. I sat in rehearsals in London. We went across with the Black Armband. I sat in rehearsals in London. And the ensemble, you had the core band. And the whole ensemble, the cellos and horns and everything were English Africans, so black. Every individual on the stage was black. And I sat and I listened to the lyric for probably the 1500th time. And it still resonated. I'm a bawling mess because every lyric is singing about me.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I think that leads on to the next question. I mean, what did Uncle Archie and Auntie Ruby teach you about storytelling in music? Because their songs, for me, work on several different levels. They can mean different things on different days. What was it in their craft that you picked up upon and put into your music? Because there is definitely a line there.
Each individual writes in their own way. And like a mechanic who fixes the car, there's tricks of the trade. Now, I won't allude to those tricks of the trade.
Don't give them away.
No, I won't. But if you can write a lyric that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't speak of a self-absorbed journey, Archie didn't do that. Neither did Ruby. Down city streets where I would roam. And so the lyric is painting a video in your mind's eye. Use my fingers as a comb. And I did that plenty of times after I lost all this, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I used to have dreadies. I used to have afro out to here, which
turned
into dreadies.
There's barely a frame big enough.
Yeah. But, but to travel the world with Ruby and Archie and Peter Rodimer, Carol Fraser, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to travel the world with some of the beautiful writers and performers of my generation.
Gentle souls.
Yeah.
I mean, when you first started undertaking music as a career, the music landscape for First Nations artists was vastly different compared to what it is now. What was it like trying to forge a career back then? Because, like I said, things are very different now. We have a plethora of talent that are coming through the ranks across all genres of music. But back then, it was a completely different world. What was it like trying to carve out a living from this?
Politics was different. Being signed to Karma Music with Blackfire's first album, which was being distributed by the Mushroom Group. Karma's music was being distributed by the Mushroom Group, and you'd meet bands along the way, Aboriginal bands, and you really didn't, it was competitive, so to speak. And the more you mature along the journey, the more you understand the purpose of what it is you're actually doing. And you're singing about, and you understand that if you write what you write about the plight and the journey, that all the mobs will listen. And hopefully non-Aboriginal listeners will understand he's not actually singing about Aboriginal Australia. He's singing about Australia itself.
And I think that's where we're at. Despite what's been going on politically across the country in recent years, it seems to me that the broader Australian community is more awake now to Indigenous storytelling than it's ever been. Have you noticed that over time, or is that something that has always been there but has just been waiting to be scraped away below the surface so all can see it?
I don't want to be combative anymore. I would rather build a bridge than a wall. And so you learn to be, is the word subtle? You try and...
Nuanced?
There's songs that that are not in the public domain. And I write, there's one called Keep On Dancing. We're gonna keep on dancing till we can't dance no more. Keep on dancing till we can't dance no more. Keep on dancing till we can't dance no more. And the lyric goes through to, and this is because of the situation that happened in Minnesota, George Floyd, Koominjay Walker in Yuendumu, and many others across the nation.
Still happening.
We're gonna keep on breathing till we can't breathe no more. Keep on breathing till we can't breathe no more. Keep on breathing till we can't breathe no more. And if that's not subtle, but it's also deep in lived experiences, Daniel, and
it's activism in a pure and artistic form.
Yeah.
How much have you used your music throughout your career as a form of activism?
I don't see it as activism when I'm there in the moment.
Yep.
It's again, it goes back to my lived experiences. I've slept in gutters and woken up and by a light, policeman's light. Come on, Mr. Edwards, you're sleeping in the gutter again, and take me to the local, and I will put you in with another Edwards. So I'm in the cell with another Edwards. I won't say who it is, and these, because I was trying to escape my past.
And how long have you been sober for now?
28 years.
I remember speaking to Uncle Archie Roach about his sobriety. Yeah. And for me, it's an amazing achievement, not only by itself, but you're in the entertainment business. There are substances flying left, right and centre. Yeah. How have you been able to hold true to your sobriety?
We have a job to do. Mm-hmm. Myself, Archie, Ruby, we knew our job.
And that was more important than anything else.
More important than anything else. Step outside self, and we have a job to do. My role, and Archie explained it differently, Ruby explained it differently, Peter Rodimer explained it. My role is to drop an imaginary pebble in that imaginary pond to create a ripple. remembering my poem at age 13, that drop. And so metaphorically, it's an amazing, when I look back, it wasn't easy. You know, I remember my first time going to JC's and Uncle Alf and Stray Blacks were playing that night. I just got out of hospital, Panch Hospital, and yeah, I'm surrounded by all the people, you know, all the mob. You want a sip, Kutcha? And I, nah. And it was difficult because I'd look at it and I wanted it, and then one day turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into 6 months, turns into a year. I don't need it. I don't need that to tell my story.
So let's talk about that, because that sobriety and that the centeredness that comes with that gives you an authority when you enter into a project like Beyond the Bars with Melbourne Community Radio Station 3CR. Can you explain to us what Beyond the Bars is and how it came about and your involvement in it?
Sean Braybrook, he now runs Woolgunganalu out at Wanron. Wanron is near Yarram.
East Gippsland.
Woolgunganalu was Wanron prison. I remember picking up a cousin all those years ago from Wanron prison. And I played for Gormandale Football Club, which is just out of Traralgon. And we'd have practice matches against Wanron. And there's the prison. So Sean Braybrook was the ALO at
Aboriginal Liaison Officer.
Aboriginal Liaison Officer at Port Phillip Prison. And he had this light bulb moment. And I suppose he saw or had heard around the traps that, you know, Roger Knox was doing NAIDOC gigs in Long Bay, or Long Bay is the equivalent of Port Phillip Prison in Sydney. And then you had Boggarrow Jail in Brisbane. And all these maximum security prisons. So he was the ALO, Sean Braybrook. He came and had a meeting at 3CR. I was doing a show called Songlines Music at 3CR, which went on to become Footprints, my own version of Songlines Music. And then he had a meeting with myself, Juliet Fox, and he said, can you come out to Port Phillip Prison and let's talk to Kelvin Anderson. He was the general manager of Port Phillip Prison. So we all went out and we sat in Kelvin Anderson's office at Port Phillip Prison. And it's so interesting. It's so interesting that we should talk about prisons, because the 11 years I spent in Arana, the principle is the same. It's suppressing the spirit, oppressing too. So we're sitting in the office at Port Phillip Prison talking to Kelvin Anderson. And I don't know who brought it up. I think it might have been Sean or it might have actually been Kelvin. Is there a possibility of doing this live? And the internet was just starting. The technology was just starting. You had to plug a line into the equipment. No internet dongles or whatever it is now. And we're sitting there And Juliet says, yes, there's a possibility for us to do it live. It had never been done, not only in Australia before, but the world.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing had ever been done live to air.
Broadcast from behind
live.
bars in a prison.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bang.
And what year was that?
2001, I think. And I remember they wouldn't allow other Aboriginal presenters to talk directly to inmates. The only person who was allowed to do that was me. I don't know why. I don't know.
I think it's that cultural authority.
Yeah, yeah. And so I had to. They'd bring all the brothers in and, how long you doing? Yeah, 8 years. How long you into that 8 years? 3 months. How you feeling? Oh, it is what it is. And you'd see in the distance the quiet ones, that oppression again. Speak when you're spoken to. Yeah. And then over the years, the 18, 19 years, the 20 years that I was involved, you'd see the quiet ones get closer. You did it. And you'd see them get closer, and the senior men or women would say, yeah, go on, come in.
It makes amazing radio, doesn't it? Every year.
I'll give you an insight. I was at Barwon Prison, and Brother Geller, no longer with us, him and Johnny Mack were the microphones, they were yarning away. And this short man, receding hair, come over, and he sat right next to me. And I'm going, ooh, what's going on here? And he goes, I haven't seen you. Last time I saw you, you were on Balranald mission. You were about 16 months old. So who are you? My mother and your mother are sisters. He was telling me my lineage. That's the purpose of Beyond the Bars. It was about connection. It was about genealogy. It was about, away from the microphones, him telling me his journey. My own first cousin, you know. It's powerful stuff. But it's beyond the radio. To me, it goes back to that pebble.
Let's move forward to another project, a completely different project, but one that is also about connection and also about songlines, and that's Carpool Karaoke, which was initially a web series, which was eventually picked up for a second series by SBS. But in that, you drove around the streets of Collingwood and Fitzroy with people like Uncle Archie Roach, Dan Sultan, Alice Skye, Emily Warramurra. How did that come about, and what are your recollections of it?
I met John Harvey through Ilbidgery.
Yep.
My family did a play called Songlines of a Mutti Mutti Man, our family's story, through theatre. So I met John through that. He's gone on to create a production company called Brown Cabs, I think. And my dear wife's, one of her best friends is Anna Grieve. And they both come to us wanting to find a project. And my wife, she loved James Corden's Carpool Karaoke.
Yep.
in the States. She goes, that'd be interesting. Why don't we create the same sort of sentiment here and idea, and you do it, darling. And because of my radio and I suppose my love of a conversation and
Really?
a yarn. Yeah. Yeah. And so we did it. We did the online series, and believe me, to sit I've travelled the world with Archie, but to sit in a confined space with my brother is, and you go on tour with him, and he doesn't speak much at all.
He's listening.
He's listening, and so I Archie, what was your first song? And it was, I can't remember what song it was. And then we sang Charcoal Lane in the car. And then we got to 3CR, and my big cousin Jackie Charles is waiting in the recording Studio 3, and we sing We Won't Cry, and wow.
That's a day.
And they're not here now.
Well, let's touch upon Uncle Jack while we're talking about him. Everyone that met him misses him. Who was Uncle Jack to you?
See, I'd known Jack for 35 years until I was informed. His mother and my mother are sisters. And I, in a sense, publicly, at the launch of Bastardy, after we watched Bastardy, are there any questions from the audience, says Jack. And put my hand up, sitting way up the back. I said, probably not a question, it's a statement, more of a statement. Oh, do you want the microphone to be... No, I went down. I put my arm around him, and he looked up, and I said, how long we known each other, Jack? Oh, about 35 years, Kutcha. And seen each other all around the place. I said, Jack, who's your mum? He said, Blanche Charles. I said, do you know my mum? No, Kutcha. My mum's Mary Edwards. Do you know the relationship between Blanche Charles and Mary Edwards? No, they're sisters, Jack. And he looked up at me. He had a tear, but it was a happy tear. And he'd go around the world and Fitzroy and Melbourne professing Kutcha Edwards is my cousin. That's who he is to me. He's my brother. He's family. And the thing with Archie's uncle that he always talks about, Banjo Clark. Banjo Clark's mother is a woman by the name of Mary Clark. Before she married Norman Clark, her name was and will always be Mary Edwards. Mary Edwards is my dad's older sister. I am, in effect, Archie's uncle.
It's a head spin, but at the same time, totally natural as well. It's something that once you discover it, you think, well, that's the way is, and that's the way it should be.
That's the way our kinship is.
I mentioned earlier that the music scene's changed just generally, but the Indigenous music scene has changed out of sight. We have, I would argue, more talent across more genres now than we've ever had. Part of that is down to technology and the fact that artists are able to record and distribute themselves without a middleman in the way. What were some of the barriers for you and your peers that you confronted when you wanted to start not only creating music but getting it down and out into the world?
See, I was hamstrung in the fact that I don't play guitar, I don't play piano. I play what is called an omnichord.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and so but the technology now and the people who were coming through, Barker and Emily Woodamara and the list goes on.
On and on.
On and on and on and on. I've mentioned just two, but and they, like you said, like it's interesting, like you said, in referencing old brother Archie, that rather than wanting to be heard, he was listening. And that's what this new group of Aboriginal singer-songwriters are doing. Are they listening to people, like myself, and understanding that they have a responsibility to nurture the songline, just like we have, But we're in good hands. We can hand over the Belmar, the clapsticks to that new group, and we did a show last year called Waripa in my language, ceremony itself. What I asked of every individual who came to ceremony is that it's ceremony, it's not a performance.
Yes.
If they can understand that they have, even though we're living in a contemporary, apartment or house in wherever they're living, but we are the oldest people of yesterday. And so we need to find the balance.
So when people come to a performance of yours, you don't want them just to have a good time. You don't want them just to go away with a warm, fuzzy feeling.
No.
You want them to carry the songline forward.
What it is that I'm doing is having an interactive conversation. I'm not performing in front of somebody. I'm wanting to conversate and I'll pose questions in between songs, How did that song resonate for you? Or did it? Or didn't it?
You're very big on the audience participation.
I'm a naughty boy when it comes to that, Daniel. But I have a tendency to become a bit sarcastic and I'll go into a crowd and that's the trick of the trade. That is one of the tricks of the trade is you're breaking down the fourth wall.
You're still making music. Circling Time is a fantastic album. Now, going into a small fanboy moment here, but I'll let you in on a secret. Out of the top 10 tracks I listened to last year, according to one of the streaming services, Singing Up Country, and I Know Where I'm Going, were both in the top 10 from last year off that album. But there's another song that I want you to tell me about from that album, and that song is Mrs. Edwards.
Yeah, dude.
You want to tell us about that song?
Yeah, let me. I'm 6 years old. I'm in grade 1 at Wattle Park Primary School. Elgar Road is where Arana is. Wattle Park Primary is on Warrigal Road. Over the PA of the school obviously the receptionist or the secretary of the office. You Edwardses, you have a visitor at Arana. So me, Wally, Maria and Alice, we all congregate at the office. We're waiting for somebody to pick us up from Arana, and it comes to pass that nobody did. So we start running towards Arana. The older brothers, Mick and Reg, they're at Water Park Secondary School, so we catch up with them. There's a gate into Arana, and we run down the hill. And the door bursts open, we all run through the door. And there's a woman standing next to the mantelpiece, the fire, the heater. We called it the mantelpiece. Standing behind her is a 13-year-old kid, 14 years old, 13. And so 6 of us, 5 of them are all excited. Mick, Reg, Alice, Wally, Maria. And I'm sort of cowering behind Reg. I've got him by and Mick. And I'm, who's that? It's my, I was scared of it. It's played on my psyche for as long as I've had to talk about it. And I get coerced. We get photos and my spirit settles. And then 3 hours into the visit, there's a person who comes up from the offices we, the Edwards family, who have gone on to respect, man by the name of Barry Cook. Barry Cook was the assistant superintendent of Arana Methodist Children's Home. He looks at his clock, a watch, and he says, Mrs. Edwards, if you're to catch that train back to where you came from, you better go now. I'm suggesting he's trying to help her navigate time.
Yep.
My understanding of that moment in time is took Mum 5 hours to get there, 3 hours to stay, or being allowed to stay. That's where that song, the lyric, the lived experience comes from. I've gone on to, and the reason why I think that song resonates for you, Daniel, it's one take.
Right, it's a performance.
One take only. I came out of the booth at Andy Stewart's studio in Woolamai, up in the rolling hills of Wonthaggi. I came out. I sat behind him. He was facing the screen, the desk, and I. When I get close to somebody, I'll refer to them as old son. Mm-hmm. Was that okay, old son? And he wouldn't turn around. I said to myself, geez, it must have been a crap vocal then, if he's... Yeah. And I You all right, old son? What's going on? He turned around, he was emotional. He said, I've been recording here in this studio for 18 years and around the world. I'll let you know that that's probably one of the best vocals I've ever heard in my time recording. I said, and I used the term, funnily enough, I said, Andy, I believe that Mum entered the space whilst I was singing that vocal. He said, why do you think I'm in the state I am? I know the moment that it happened. And he was true.
That song was a gift from your mother to you.
Yeah.
You've given us so many gifts throughout the years.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming along and speaking with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. One of the highlights of my life.
Yeah. Beautiful, Daniel. Beautiful, mate.